So welcome to another Tipping Points. I'm your host, Barry Dennis, and on my left is
John McKeon
and
Christy Clausen.
And we also have with us Linda McKeon on Skype today.
Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
So, there's so many things going on in the world, but probably nothing is more in front of us every day lately than all of the sexual harassment issues and situations and people coming forward and accusations, and sometimes it's hard to follow. It's a growing time is what it is, and what we're experiencing is growing pains, but it's also, of course, on the other side of those growing pains is a better world trying to be birthed right now, a better place for everyone to live and feel safe. And so it's a great thing that's happening, that we're moving through as a country and as a world, looking at these things. But we're going to take a look at how we move through it and what's been going on and why is it happening, to shed some light on it today. So, Christy, why don't you start with some of your thoughts as to, as we were discussing a little while before, what's happening? Why are people coming forward that haven't in 5, 10, 20 years?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot to that, and we were talking before and just saying that you can't really make a blanket statement around it, that it's individual for each person, and it could be that one person inspired another person, whatever, female or male, to come forward and talk about it. Some people have really trauma that has prevented them maybe from physiologically remembering. They just can't remember, and the attention and the headlines and everything has triggered that maybe for them. I think there's lots of reasons around it,
Yeah.
And maybe just strength in numbers also.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you feel safer. I think I would feel safer having that experience. If I'm by myself, it's scary.
It is scary.
But
absolutely.
But if I have other people that are sharing their experience, then it becomes a safer place for me to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's #MeToo.
Yeah.
And I believe Person of the Year was #MeToo. And the picture is a whole bunch of women. And they're just saying this idea is the thing of the year. And I certainly agree that in any situation or where you might feel ashamed, obviously because that's part of the situation. When someone has been victimized, a lot of times that person feels, what did I do?
The victim.
The victim feels like maybe I did something wrong. How did I do this? So there's that shame that goes on until in some way you feel justified by other people and realizing that you know.
But I'm thinking that it's not just in the issues surrounding sexual abuse, but it's any type of a victim.
That's what I'm saying.
Going to experience a similar. So that phenomenon is not unique.
It's not unique just to sexual harassment. It can be anything that's gone wrong that we may feel we caused, but we didn't. We feel ashamed and we're embarrassed. And so for a lot of these people, it's like you said, Christy, it can take, a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years until you feel like maybe it wasn't my fault.
I think the reason a lot of people haven't said anything or come forward is the world wasn't ready to hear it. I think that in many cases years ago, the people that experienced it didn't say anything because if they did, it was actually looked like they caused it in some way. So I think now people are really ready to look at the people that caused the abuse versus the person that was the victim. So they think that's a huge shift, and that's due to society growing and being aware. And in the past, I think the older generations a lot of times just didn't say anything. You weren't supposed to say anything, and it was expected that it be kept quiet. Where now with the Me Too movement, and I think people feel like they have a voice and they have people that want to hear, and there's actually repercussions to the people that caused the people to be hurt versus the victims being retaliated against. Mm-hmm. So I think it's huge.
Yeah.
So you did touch on something interesting. So if I wear something less than baggy clothing, so if it shows my form or my figure, then I'm responsible. There was some feeling
Yeah,
that
that's kind of how in a former lifetime at another corporation, I was involved in 3 different sexual harassment investigations, and I basically chose to stay quiet because the people that did voice their opinion basically were either blackballed or it was basically looked negatively upon them, and it wasn't kept confidential.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't worth it to say anything because nothing was going to change at that time because people weren't really ready to hear it. And if somebody was powerful in a corporation or valued because they did a great job, that outweighed anything bad they may have done
Yeah.
at the time because it was accepted.
Yeah, and that is why my sort of opening statement, you've really touched on it. What we're witnessing is an evolution to a more civil society, where it's changed. Things are changing.
Yeah, and there's personal responsibility.
Yeah. People have to take responsibility. They're being forced to take responsibility for their actions, and it's creating a place where people can feel safe to speak, and they're not going to necessarily, because the fear, obviously, in some cases, is that they're going to lose their job,
Right.
or
Well,
or
in some
their
cases,
reputation.
They did lose their job,
In some cases, they did lose their job.
right? Because they were valued less than the person that they were accusing. So it happened with Harvey for whatever reason. The climate was right for people to come out.
Yeah, and I mean, they tried to keep that hushed.
Of course. Well, he has been keeping it hushed for many years.
He has, but the author of the first article, the expose on Harvey Weinstein, they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't run with it. They wouldn't show it. So he had to go elsewhere. And finally,
so I heard this one woman sharing her experience of being on a ship and Harvey coming in the room and doing the Harvey thing, which was totally unacceptable and objectionable. And then they were telling her, why didn't you lock your door? Like it was her fault. Like if you'd locked your door, it would have been okay. You allowed Harvey to come in, so it's your fault.
Yeah, no, it's utterly insane, and that's the world. That's the crazy world that we're leaving behind, and this concept of the casting couch just being a normal statement.
Oh, it has been for years. It's been a joke for years, and people have casually ignored it. Everybody's known this was going on.
Yeah. The what's it called? They're the secret. The
Illuminati?
No. The open secret.
Yes.
It's been an open secret in Hollywood for all these years. One of the most infuriating things that's coming out right now is that all the sexual harassment in Congress,
right,
and all the many people who have perpetrated sexual harassment and what's gone on, just to add salt to the wounds, what's coming out is that taxpayer money, federally tax money, has gone as hush money to keep women quiet. So mostly women, so they wouldn't get in trouble, and they're using our money.
So we're all complacent. We're partially responsible because we've contributed to their cover.
Well, only if I had signed off on that.
Okay, well that's the difference.
It's
right?
It's not.
Okay, so it's actually fraud then.
Yeah. I suppose you're right.
Yeah.
So they've been using our money. It's like, are you kidding me? For hush money, for hush funds, to keep it quiet?
Not that it'd be okay if they used their own money, but it just rubs salt.
It just makes it so much worse.
Yes, they should be using their own money for their own legal fees.
All of that should be paid back to the public.
Absolutely.
All of it. It's unbelievable.
Right. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
It should happen. It should happen.
It should absolutely should happen.
Yeah.
But these people are not held accountable. This is part of the movement that's happening right now with the sexual harassment thing and other things too. But this is a big one, is that everyone needs to be held accountable, but Congress, the Senate, they have been living with different rules. And to be able to use taxpayer money to cover up your own misdeeds it's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
How come we don't get taxpayer money, when we need so little money to cover for an education or cover for, you know what I mean? Something actually we don't get me.
So you might say one cover up is like a year in college.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 20 or 30,000.
Sure.
Absolutely. Maybe more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that coming out, again, is an amazing opportunity. It really is a time in space where, it'll be a marked time. I mean, this will be forever remembered. Remember when Harvey Weinstein was caught and the avalanche and how it changed culture. It's going to change our culture, and it's changing it for the better. Really for the better, so much for the better. And that's what's exciting about it, that finally it's happening and people are going to be held accountable, and there will be much less victims starting now.
What I find interesting is that the people that would perpetrate this type of a crime, if they would cross that ethical boundary, what other ethical boundary would they cross?
No, that's a good point. But I think this is as you go through, I was thinking about, I even did some research. What was the sexual norms 100,000 years ago?
Okay.
50,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Or in different places in the world. And of course, there's very little information on it. There's some, but
Well, I'm thinking of caveman.
you can only imagine what it was like. It's like, bonk.
Well, so that's how it's portrayed.
Yeah, and I can only imagine that there's some reality to that. And as we go through time, certainly, I mean, we can't ignore the fact that sexuality has an impulse. And of course, as time moves along, one of the pieces that differentiates a civil society is those who begin to understand and recognize and be able to control and work with sexuality in a way that's healthy.
But is it sex or is it power?
Well, I mean, it's probably both.
Okay.
Certainly both.
Because it seems to me that power is one of the things that facilitates this type of activity.
Yeah, I think there's a relationship, but it's not one or the other. In my opinion, Linda and Christy, let me know what you think of this, but I think that they relate to each other. But what I see happening, for example, with Weinstein and all these Hollywood people and politicians, when a person, a man or a woman, is in a situation for a long period of time where they have a lot of power, a lot of money, and it's all yes people,
Right.
then a lot of things, you start to lose your moral compass because you start to feel above, people start to feel above law and above other people. And so that power, just with that power and that money and all the accolades and fame and different things, with that rising, there's a decline in sort of what you feel morally accountable for. I mean, this is what we're seeing. I think we're seeing with a rise of fame and fortune and power, there is a diminishment of oftentimes of one's moral compass. Suddenly you just feel I can. So then my point is, it relates then to those sexual urges. You say, hey, of course they want me. I'm rich and famous. I get to do what I want, and everybody wants me. Look, they all love me. You know what I mean?
Well, so they have an opportunity for consenting relationships. I just wonder why they cross the line into non-consensual.
Because they can.
Well, I think that that's part of it, but I think the Me Too movement is showing that it doesn't matter if a person is in a power position or not.
That's
that it
what's
happens
changing.
across the board. Like, I've been in many work environments where the things that have been said and actions to me are not from people of power, that it was sexual harassment anyway.
Oh, okay.
And that's what, like on my
peers,
Facebook, I have oodles of Me Too that says, similar things.
Okay, so
And they weren't all.
so you use subordinates or peers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's even more pervasive than.
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I know of any female that hasn't felt that they've been sexually harassed.
Okay.
Sure. However, it's going to take somebody who's extremely like a person who makes a comment that's inappropriate. Right. Is Matt Lauer, if he had the money, the fame, and
right.
You know what I'm saying? But they don't, so it's not going to go that far. You take Matt Lauer and he's got a button to lock the door, and
but what I was saying is just
power.
to contrast the power. It doesn't have to have anything to do with power.
No, of course not.
That it just happens.
Sure, but my point was they probably feel like they can get away with more.
Absolutely.
But Linda?
I think it has to do with diversity. I mean, years ago there weren't a lot of women in power, and so they were in positions of lesser power, and so the more women and the more diversity, whether it be lesbians, you think of Ellen and some of the people there's a lot more people in powerful positions that are women and other minorities that I think help the voice as well, too, because it's not just a bunch of good old boys, which is what the term was used quite frequently, because it was a good old boys society in which they could get away and pretty much do whatever they wanted. And now that it's not just good old boys in those positions, I think the landscape's changing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just women.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've had experience with sexual harassment. So there's been 2 experiences. One, so that's probably not as many as women have had, but it happens to men as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had a female superior and cornered me in a small room, and my fiance was just outside, and she was coming on to me, and it was very awkward. And so I felt unclean, and it was, and you do ask yourself, what did I do to bring this on?
Yeah.
And then another was a male superior came on to me, and was telling me things like, "I dream about you at night." And it's like, well, that's a little inappropriate. I'm not feeling a large amount of comfort right now, but just the way it makes you feel, it's just unclean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said in the beginning, male and female, either one, whether they're coming forward now, male or female, because I think that male, just because of like the pride involved and other things, like I think it's vastly underreported.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And there's even statistics that suggest that it is underreported.
So I did report it, and my boss, so the boss of the boss who was harassing me, gave me a look of utter disbelief, like why didn't you take her up on it?
There you go. Now that's
And so I was astounded. It's like, so there's going to be no censure. In fact, he looks down at me because I didn't take advantage of an opportunity, and I'm thinking, how twisted is this?
yeah.
You broke the male code.
I broke the
broke
code.
the code.
I guess I did.
You broke the bro code.
The bro code.
Yeah.
Well, that and that's true. I mean, what happened? It's true. I mean, you were harassed, and then that the old guard of male thinking came at you and said, "Hey, you just missed an opportunity." You're like, "What?"
Yeah.
I think people are starting to make choices based on where maybe they wouldn't say anything or do anything, and like I left the company that had allowed that kind of thing to happen, and I think more and more people are taking action and speaking up, both by their words and by either leaving or not staying with organizations that are willing to put up with that kind of stuff.
So I would ask you, if you were going to leave the organization anyway, why wouldn't you bring a suit against them? Cash in on this.
For me personally, it's not worth the energy. I mean, it just, the time and energy it would take to actually pursue that is not worth it, because it would be in courts for years. And again, what's the ultimate outcome? You want them to change, the culture to change. And so is a monetary lawsuit really going to get them to change? Because in many cases, it'll be settled outside of court with the agreement that nothing will be disclosed. And so for me, it personally wasn't worth going there. It was just worth leaving the organization and going to a place that was more in alignment and that did respect people and valued ethics and wouldn't allow those kind of things to happen in the workplace.
I think that you bring up a good point with that, Linda, too, that many of these people are probably coming forward now, like to circle back around to our initial statements, that they didn't feel like it was worth it,
Okay. Right, the
Just
emotional
the negative energy, the emotional
right.
toll, all
Yeah,
of
how much
that.
it would take.
And if you're in court, you have to relive.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to relive the whole
Yeah,
experience,
you're
right?
under scrutiny,
Yeah.
and for people like that, where the stars involved, their careers, future
Blacklisted.
movies,
Yeah.
exactly. So that for sure was not worth their time and energy.
Well, I know, Linda, you mentioned to me some concern over blacklisting in your industry. If you had,
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of times if you had filed a suit, or like in the 3 cases I was involved with, if I had said something, it could have affected my future promotions and positions that I would have been considered for, because it's kind of a behind the scenes secret that wasn't kept confidential and could be held against you later when you were trying to be promoted.
Yeah, so it works against you in many ways, emotionally. Your career is at stake. what other people might think of you.
Oh yeah, sure,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and that, like I said, the shift has occurred where, and like Linda mentioned too, I think the shift has occurred where people who are making the accusation or who were abused, sexually harassed, were in the position in the past to potentially have that whole thing just flipped around and have them called a whore.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Like
in the
you
case
brought
of
it up. You brought it up.
like
Yeah,
Monica
yeah,
Lewinsky,
right. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or Flowers or whatever. You did this. You're
Well,
a bimbo.
well,
You're-
Monica's still being is still feeling that to this day.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! No, her life was emotionally just destroyed,
On social media, she's just torn apart.
torn apart, and it's and people like her and from the past. That's why it's such a moment in time what happened there, and having Bill Clinton look at the camera and say over and over again, "I did not have inappropriate relation," all that stuff, and just Monica Lewinsky and these other women. To me, right now, today, they should be given the opportunity to tell their story. They should be given a chance to sort of redeem themselves for what they've been through.
So are you saying that we should rescind the non-disclosures with no penalty? Because that's where a lot of these women are, is that they're under non-disclosure. And there's-
Well, you're right, some of them are, but I don't think, what is it, Jennifer Flowers, is that her name? Just, there's all these women that Bill Clinton was involved with, and Monica Lewinsky. I don't think they're under any of that,
Okay.
because they're having interviews with people and they're trying to talk about it, but people weren't willing to listen to them for the last 20 years.
Right.
Now we should listen to them. They should be
Well,
heard.
and that's a good point, because they have been speaking out about this.
Oh,
for
they have
years
been
and
for years.
and nobody's paid any attention.
Any attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been terrible for them.
Well, in fact, people worship Bill in such a way that Monica was evil. She was the demon trying to bring him down.
She was the demon.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And to try to imagine what their life has been like, being called the bimbo parade, and
Mhm.
that they seduced him. Oh, come on!
Right.
It's so laughable. But there should be a reset button, for those women to be heard, to be listened to try to give some dignity back to the life that was taken away from them. That's my opinion.
I think in the past, people didn't believe the victim. So not only did they not get their voice heard, but they were questioned as far as them telling the truth, which is nice that it's finally changed and they actually believe the victim and that they're not just making, because why would you make something like that up?
Well,
Like anybody would choose to experience that kind of thing.
the only time it's made up, because it is sometimes, is when
It is.
sometimes it is made up because somebody wants to destroy somebody else's life, so they actually do make it up sometimes.
So that's the other side of it.
Innocent until proven guilty.
This would be a good time to come out if you did not like somebody, or for whatever reason you needed to try to lash out at them. This would be a good time to come out and accuse somebody.
Accuse somebody of something they didn't do. Yeah, yeah.
Which
It
I
happens.
don't want to diminish the experience that women have had that was
Of course,
real, but that is the other side of it.
it is the other side, and many men's lives have been destroyed by lies that have occurred, of being accused of something they just didn't do.
Mhm.
And the really hard thing about that is it's kind of one of those terrible things about human nature. Once it's out there and it's been said and everybody hears the big story, and then 6 months later it's on page 20.
Right.
Oh, it was all
It's all a
false.
lie. Meanwhile, this person's life.
Meanwhile, their
Sure,
life
yeah.
is they've lost their job,
Right.
they've lost their reputation.
Yes.
It's like, so that's the only exception to that rule. But the vast majority are telling the truth and need to be heard and need to be looked at, and innocent until proven guilty. But all accusations should be looked at.
So, in my personal life, I've never, at least consciously or with any intent, sexually harassed anybody. Which I think, had I had done that in my past, would I be running scared right now? Right? I mean, what's
Right.
going to come out of the closet to haunt me? There must be millions of people whose lives who are just must be just quaking.
I think so. I know I've had that same thought, because I mean, I'm so far just who I am is so far from being able to ever do something
Right.
like that ever
Victimize somebody. Yeah.
in my life, that I've actually had the thought like, oh my gosh, like all these people coming out, can you imagine? And the thing is, I know, John, you're the same way. I've never participated in any activities, anything like, any sexual harassment or of anything or of any way. In fact, I've been more sexually harassed than I have been, in the way that you or I have too have been come on to in ways that were very uncomfortable and just felt really gross about it. But I've been around guys, and of course, and you hear things and you know kind of what's common, and I've thought, I go, oh my gosh. In terms of subtle things, inappropriate words, subtle things like that in the workplace, or maybe an inappropriate just little touch here and there. I mean, it's got to be, the numbers must be staggering.
Yeah.
And guys who are kind of shaking in their boots right now. Oh my God, I should have never made that comment. And the unfortunate part, and this brings us to the other side of that. It's like the unfortunate side of this. We got to find our way through this, but there's a sense to the world in which I know I'm afraid to make a comment, a nice comment to a woman that is I'm afraid to now. It's like I'm afraid to say, "Oh, you look beautiful," or something. You know what I mean? Something, because I'm like, "Oh my God, what if they take it the wrong way?" So hopefully we can navigate this and come out on the other end where we're actually able to, say and do loving things that aren't taken wrongly,
Right.
And not done inappropriately.
Right. So we will, as a result of this, we will come out in a healthier place.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I want to wrap it up. Again, is how I opened it, and that is just to point out that we're experiencing, this wonderful time in history to watch what's happening. It's amazing and very hopeful to see what's going on, and that is that people are being listened to, they're being heard, they're being respected, they're being taken seriously. And one of the most amazing things that's happening right now, for the first time, and I think Christy, you'd said something, is that what's happening is incredible, because at this point right now, it no longer matters how powerful you are, how much money you have.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
for the first time.
Tear down the wall.
The wall's coming down,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're the reason, you're the one who attracts the most views with Matt Lauer's case. And he had like a $20+ million a year contract. It's like, too bad, you're out.
Right.
Right. Harvey Weinstein, most
One of the most
influential,
powerful
powerful,
people,
wealthy people,
Hollywood,
been given a pass for all these years. Nope, not going to work anymore. You're out. So it's super exciting that the playing field is being leveled.
Absolutely.
And that everyone, and of course in most cases women, but also men who've been abused in this way, but mostly women, are being heard. And it's a great time. It will be a time that we will mark this time when we look back at it historically.
Yeah.
It's going to go down in history, what's happening right now. And it all started with the Harvey Weinstein thing, and it branched out. So the opportunity here for all of us, of course, is to, and of course most of us are not out there sexually harassing people. We're not. However, we all have areas in which we may do things or say things that are not as clear or how we meant it to be. We make mistakes, and sometimes we can do better. I think what I just said has to do with a lot of what's going on in the world. That there's a lot of birthing pains going on, but that I think things are going to get better as we move through it. So I'm grateful that you've been here with us today, and all of us can take a look at our lives and see where we can do better at our own relationships and communication and how we deal with people in the workplace and at home with friends. It's a time to look in the mirror as well, just to be a better person as we all rise up through this experience.
And if you like conversations like this, like and subscribe. You can visit us on YouTube at Tipping Point Productions, And visit our website at tippingpoint.productions. Thank you very much.
See you next time. Bye.